welcome to the Startup Grind.
So I brought you with us tonight. So we usually like to kick it off by finding out a little bit more about you personally, where you came from. Are you from a big city? Are you from a little village? Are you Swiss?
I'm actually Swiss. Yeah.
Okay.
One of the uncommon Swiss founders.
Yeah.
So I'm originally from Goldach, which is next to the Lake of Constance, next to Germany. Anyone else from Goldach? The chance was pretty low, but worth a try. You know? Which is quite a small town, but it has around 10,000 people there.
It's reasonable for Switzerland.
Kind of countryside when you compare it to Zurich, but that's where I grew up.
Okay. And as you were growing up, do you think that you caught the startup infection as a kid, or that came later on? So were your parents, were they entrepreneurial, or is that something that developed later?
In my case, my parents were not the entrepreneurial guys. So, my mother is working with the elderly people and help them in activation and stuff like that. And my father is working for the electricity in the town. So basically, not very entrepreneurial. So, but I think there are kind of some characteristics of them maybe also being able to do something like this. But I was not really motivated to do something like that. Absolutely not.
And as you were studying, because a lot of people, you hear stories that they were selling candy to their friends or buying stuff from China and selling it, the early Game Boys or things like that, and making a little marketplace to their friends. Were you business minded as a kid, or how did that?
I don't really think I was. I'm really a kind of a boring person in this kind of thing. Maybe I got like this Hubba Bubba from the kiosk when I didn't have any money, so I took one.
But that's not very entrepreneurial.
No, I actually didn't really launch some businesses or something, and actually I also I tried to study, but I failed.
Yeah.
So after like more than a half year, but then I kind of started doing that stuff because I started working on websites and starting my own little tiny micro companies, which didn't make any money, but were at least some fun. And I was more interested in doing that stuff than studying, actually.
So where did the idea of your company, is this your first company, Frontify?
Yeah, actually, it's my first real company.
Right.
I had some other stuff, like I actually created something called Visual Ping. Not sure if someone of you know it. It's like a Malte and some others. But it was not really a company, it was just a project. And then actually I've been sold and some other tiny things, like a betting game on football, which grew quite big with 1,000 people and stuff like that. So some tiny stuff, but the real company is actually Frontify, which is the only professionally made company, the first one. Yeah.
So how long ago did you start that, and how did that idea come about?
I'm actually a developer, so software developer by heart. Right. So I worked at several companies doing software products, and the idea came when I worked at Nemix, so pretty popular web agents in Switzerland, and I was working as a software developer there as well, and I was kind of in the interface between designers and developers. I don't really call myself a designer, but I also do it kind of quite not bad, and I found out that these kind of creative persons and technical persons, they kind of have a different mindset, and that I have kind of a special ability to understand both worlds a little bit, and then found out that this kind of collaboration needs tools to support people working together on creative projects, on branding, on everything connected, and the idea of Frontify was born. Yeah.
Okay, and why the name Frontify?
Now we tell a different story when someone asks, but the original story was that I was a front-end developer, and therefore Frontify front-end, and so therefore it was more a technical reason behind it, because I like the term front-end. When we tell the story now, today, I kind of transform the story a little bit to tell that we kind of enable brands to make everything consistent, which is then in the front, so basically consumed by the customers.
Right.
So everything that's in the front window and is kind of what people experience when they look at the brand. So that's what we stand for.
Yeah. Okay. And so back, you were working in Namix and you had this idea. How did you realize that it was a monetizable pain point? What made you think that it was worth leaving your stable job to launch out and it was something that you could sell? Because everyone has, I mean, we are full of founders here in the room. Everyone has ideas, but an idea is good, but if you can sell it, then that's when you realize you're onto something realistic.
Actually, I had no idea how to sell that thing. But yeah, well, I'm a developer, so no economical background or anything. So I was just happy building something cool. And then I just pushed it out. Fortunately, I made kind of a deal that this is my baby, basically, and I can do whatever I want with it.
So you started while you were still
I was at the company,
yeah.
and I didn't use my daytime to do it. I did it in my free time. And when I just put on a website, like a launch website with just the idea on it, it gained a lot of attraction.
Okay.
So I had around 5,000 people interested in the product, and therefore started using it in a beta version.
Right.
So I had a working prototype, which was used across thousands of people and companies already.
Yeah.
So this was kind of gave my confidence to try something more out of it. Yeah.
Okay. And since the beginning, has there been any major pivot in the concept, or have you stuck with the primary concept and the product itself?
Yeah, when we actually started, it was more like a collaboration platform, like a design collaboration platform for designers and developers, so more from a bottom-up approach, optimizing processes. And yeah, it really didn't sell well. So it kind of, just didn't work out. I mean, I sold some licenses on it, but it just didn't work out for around a year or so. So I was like a single founder, basically, in the company.
Okay.
And I did everything by myself. I tried to build everything up, doing sales, doing marketing, kind of finding a financial model and everything. Had these huge numbers in the Excel sheet, when doing a first pitch on investors. This is gonna be
hockey stick
huge. And then it was not huge. And then when I took some other people on board, we started thinking about how we can transform the story a little bit and kind of switch the focus from having a more technical product, which, because I was a technical person, I kind of always said, "Oh, this is awesome. Why people don't buy it?" I mean, it's great. But it was too complex and it was too complicated for people to understand at this point. So we kind of had to switch to something more simple, which is something we call the style guide. So we started.
So at this point, what's your elevator pitch?
My elevator pitch at this point. I'm not as good in pitching.
That's why you got some co-founders.
Yeah, exactly. I got some people on board who are better than me, so this is quite great. No, the elevator pitch is basically we help brands become more consistent across channels.
Okay.
So this sounds a little bit abstract, but we do that by providing tools to document their guidelines, enable all their employees to consume those guidelines, to work together on projects, to kind of allow them to supervise what's happening on their brand. So we help customers like Lufthansa to really, across 1,000 people or 2,000 people, to really work together with their agencies and all those people involved. And we do that by just creating great software, which helps them to do that.
So many people here in the audience have their own startup or are thinking about their startup or are in some phase of their own company. Why is brand management so important?
Yeah, brand management, I mean, maybe most people look at it as I just need a logo, I just need a name and some colors and a font. But I think in today's world, it's not enough anymore. I mean, you need to kind of have a story, people need to remember for what you stand. And so basically, you need to transform that idea into your products, which could be your website, which could be your app, so that people can really experience the same you want them to feel in all your products. And this needs more than just like a visual guideline. It just needs more thinking about the brand. What do we stand for? How do we want people to perceive ourselves? How do we want to look? How do we want people to feel our brand? Are we very simple? Are we professional? Are we fun? Are we whatever do we stand for? And make sure that in all your products, you basically kind of live the same idea.
And you think it's important for startups to, at an early stage, to already start defining that story?
Yeah, maybe I'm not the best example. Frontify is not the best example actually for the branding stuff, because when I started, I had other problems than my logo. I had a friend helping me out on this, and he did a logo. When I look back, it would have been better to start off earlier, thinking about the brand more, because you anyway have to do it. So if you at the beginning think about your values, think about your vision a little bit more, then it's maybe easier in the later stage.
Right.
So I think it's really good if you can invest, if you have the mind free to invest more in your brand. It's definitely worth it. But in my case, I was alone, and I had not much money, and I had to take care of the product and sell that stuff, and the pressure came on and everything. So it was just not the thing I had to care at that point. But when I look back, it would have made a lot of stuff easier if I had done it earlier on.
And on that topic, I guess a common question also that founders have is whether it's being a single founder or having co-founders is better. So far from what you've said, it sounds like you would have been happy to have a co-founder from the very beginning.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just a matter of if you find the right person. In my case, I mean, when I look back, I was a developer which really was passionate about what I'm doing. So I was actually able to do a lot of roles at that point. So I could do the design, I could do the programming, I could kind of do the selling as well. So I didn't necessarily need someone else to kind of do the first version of the product. So in my case, it was easy to kind of try this. But the problem, I think, being a single founder is that you have all these micro decisions that have to be made.
Right.
I mean, I had a lot of mentors who helped me, like Mike Neff from Dudler. But you still have those emails you send out, and maybe you have a tiny little question. If you had someone next to you, you could just ask, hey, how do you like this? Or how do you think about this? And I think, therefore, you have to handle a lot by yourself.
Right.
So, and that's, from a psychological perspective, is kind of very hard, I think.
So all the little things add up to be a big thing.
Yeah, because then you struggle all the time. So you have these tiny successes, and then you have failures. At some day you think, whoa, I got some great feedback from a customer. The other day someone says, this is all shit. I mean, and then you have to handle this. And if you have people around you, this person can help you out of something, and you can share your good ideas at that point where they happen, and not like a week after. So I think that's really, I would totally recommend to be more than one founder, but in my case, it kind of worked out, but it was not easy. Yeah.
So you today have a pretty interesting portfolio of clients, some big names, like you mentioned earlier, Lufthansa and some other big brands. How long did it take for you to be able to break into a big client? And it's always challenging when you come from nowhere, you have no history, no other references, and you approach a big brand. How are they supposed to trust you? So how did that work out for you?
Yeah, I think it always needs those coincidences and luck a little bit. In my case, it was one person from a German agency which kind of found the company or the startup and kind of liked the idea behind it, the vision. So we met at some point for a beer, and started to talk, and then he introduced me to some people from Lufthansa. And I went there, talked to them, had some beers together, worked, and just shared some thoughts and built up trust. And I think that's one of the main things. You have to kind of, my advantage was I could really kind of show that passion about the vision. They could trust me because I could from a technology perspective, tell them that I'm able to do this. And you need this one person or two persons who trust you in the very beginning. And this is the beginning of everything. It's so important to have this first big name. And this was actually when I still was alone. I was one guy, and we pitched, or the guys who helped me I had some people helping me out at that point. And there was a pitch against Adobe and others, which we won. So
this must have been really good beer, huh?
Yeah, actually it was. But still it's a lot of work, and it needs so much enthusiasm about the topic, and it just needs that kind of luck, and it needs that time to create this situation. I think it's not only luck; it's about creating and enforcing that situation. And if it wasn't this case with Lufthansa, maybe it would have been a month later. I don't know. But in this case it was.
And from there, being able to get Lufthansa on board, did that facilitate further bigger clients as well?
Yeah, absolutely. This was key, absolutely key. I mean, from Lufthansa there was contacts enabling us to get TUI, other contacts enabling us to get MAN, and then from there we had enough references to get all the others. So this is kind of, you need that kind of kickstart,
of course,
which enables people are talking to each other and kind of tell the story, and this really helps you.
And do you have any competitors?
No.
No.
No, it would be bad if we would have none. I could tell you a list of 50. No, we have competitors in all areas we're active. So basically, and one of the biggest ones you probably know is Envision. I think they got recently announced their 100 million funding round.
Okay.
So they are now at 235 million. Not quite bad. Yeah. So no, it's just only one, and it's not a real competitor, but there's a lot, and that's good for the business. Basically, we're gonna. It's good to have those guys who also penetrate the market, kind of educate people about the whole story, and they kind of, sometimes you feel like, oh no, they did it before us. We had the same idea a year ago. Why didn't we make it first and stuff like that? But that's just part of the game, and I think you should not be too worried about the competitor doing the same thing, or that sometimes just happens. I think you just need to follow your path, and you will have your success at some point.
So when did you get some co-founders, or is it like a business partner? Was it you considered a co-founder? How far along were you in the business? How did that happen? And do you have more than one co-founder?
I founded the company together with investors.
Yeah.
So there were like 5 in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and they actually provided the money and the mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so around after 1 year, I found out, okay, I'm out of money. So I need to find a solution. I wasn't confident enough to, I could have taken the money from investors and then hire people. But I wasn't confident enough to really start off when I'm in a situation of not having enough money. So I just went freelancing for a month or so, just earned enough, as much money as in the whole year before. And then was kind of, I had this little bit of money in the bank and was confident, okay, now I can have time to think about it and really make a decision. And then I hired 2 people. So I decided to step down as a CEO and take the role of the CTO.
Mm-hmm.
and hire a CEO,
Yeah.
which was actually the guy who also was a mentor in the first year.
Okay.
And we knew each other from the earlier days.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at him as kind of a co-founder.
Yeah.
He was not from the beginning, but he takes an essential part in the company. Yeah.
So that brings up, I think, a very sensitive topic, but a very important topic that usually founders consider themselves the founder, the CEO, the head of the company. And just because you found the company doesn't mean that you are the right business person to lead the company into success. And it's often a challenge, especially when you start doing fundraising and you're getting on investment and you need to grow. Mm-hmm. It becomes a question, and often there is some sensitivity around that. So it's from your side, was it an easy decision to hand over the reins of the company to someone else?
Yeah, for me it was. I think I always try to kind of see my weaknesses at some point, and I see my weaknesses in some aspects which are very important in the role of a CEO. Mm-hmm. And also I think I could bring more value to the company in the role of a technical and creative and visionary person. And I was very happy that I found someone who is really happy to do this part of the job, which is quite challenging, but it's just something I'm not good at. Mm-hmm. And I think I still have kind of the role of leading the company in some way.
From a vision perspective.
And still I'm the founder, which is kind of a special role. Yeah. But in the end, a CEO is defined by his role, that he has to handle a lot of other stuff. He needs to handle the overall strategy, he needs to handle finance stuff, he needs to handle people, businesses, and a lot more, so much more. And if I had to do this all, I think I would not have been happy now. I mean, and the company wouldn't have been such successful.
So you mentioned that you had some investment, or that was seed investment or from angel investors. Mm-hmm. Did you take any more investment after that?
Yeah, we took a very, very small round in the beginning, mm-hmm. and then we took one in 2014, okay. which was a little bit bigger, but still quite small, mm-hmm. for like a Series A, let's say, like the second round. And since then we kind of organically growing, mm-hmm. with that money. Yeah. And we're very happy that we achieved that so far.
What would be your advice for someone looking for angel investors today?
Being authentic. I think that's the most important thing. Being passionate about what you want to achieve. Not thinking too much about business plans. I think it's not so important. I think in the beginning it's about your vision, your idea, also maybe your background a little bit, so that people have to just have trust in you, in terms of, are you able to find the right people to kind of challenge that vision and build a product. And I think when I started off, I made this like Excel sheet with the financial numbers, and I think I looked it up in a book, how to write the financial plan, something. just put some numbers in and some formulas, and then was whee. It's gonna be very, very great business. And I think it's always about when you look at those financial numbers, for example, they are important, and they are important not because it's the absolute numbers that count. It's not about that it will happen. It will never happen. But the thing is, what people want you to think about is why, for example, are you going to make triple of revenues, but you only have you still have no support person, or you don't have an account manager, or you will sell to 100 enterprise customers but don't have a salesperson, or something like this, or the office costs don't go up if you have more people.
Yeah.
Like just these tiny little things, I think they will anyway adjust your numbers in their minds. So they will look at the numbers and they say, okay, this guy has no ideas of numbers and how the business works, but he made his thoughts about changes. So maybe when this is going to happen, I need more people here, and the costs here will go up. If they go up 20 times or 10 times, not really important. They will adjust those numbers in their minds, and they will drop it down, and they will let you know maybe afterwards, but not at that point. So they just want you to think about, and they need to feel that you thought through what you want to make. Yeah. And
whenever you take someone else's money, eventually they're going to want it back, right?
No.
So
they just said to me, take it and build something. It's cool for us.
Do you have an exit strategy, or have you thought about a potential exit?
Yeah, sure. It's always a topic. I mean, if you take money from investors, they basically want it back with a little bit of upside, hopefully. I think generally we still have multiple exit strategies possible. Mm-hmm. I think as long as you don't go the VC way, yeah. I think when you go the VC way, we discussed before a little bit, I think you only have one way left. So it's only the exit strategy of...
In your case, you only have some smaller seed funding or
exactly. We only have we don't have industrial investors.
Okay.
So basically we do have multiple ways of an exit strategy.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's possible that we sell the company at some point. Mm-hmm. It would be great. It's also great if it's going to be a sustainable business, which is kind of giving enough money back to investors. Mm-hmm. And I think I don't want to be driven by this decision, yeah. Basically. Because if I'm driven by this decision, we discussed that a lot in the last few months. It's like that you think you're only able to do something great with a lot of money, and you want to be that next $500 million business. I mean, it doesn't mean that we're gonna build it, but it needs to be in a way that our people and our company is feeling comfortable with, mm-hmm. and therefore we just don't want to decide yet.
Right. So it doesn't make sense right now to do a large round investment for growth, or
yeah,
you're not sure yet?
We just leaving that topic open,
right.
For now, because we discussed that, and we would have had the possibilities, mm-hmm. to do that, but it would imply
changes the focus.
And at that point we kind of organically growing, so we mm-hmm. can kind of grow at quite a high speed,
right.
Not compared to the US startups basically, but for a Swiss startup we're kind of growing very fast. Mm-hmm. And we don't feel that if we would grow faster that would be healthy anymore. Okay. So and the growth we kind of working on is doable by the money we generate from our business.
So would you recommend to other founders to look for funding as early as possible, or to try to bootstrap as long as possible?
I mean, the game changed a little bit in the last years, I think. I mean, currently you can also read in a lot of articles about it that in today's world it's possible to bootstrap a software as a service company quite easily, yeah. Because it's way easier to build something, it's way easier to reach out to the market. There is like the playbook is there already, you know what to do, you know the metrics, you know, it's kind of a science, and you follow the playbook, and if your product is good, there is a high chance you're going to succeed. But if you want to be that next unicorn, it might be needed that you need a lot more money, especially when you have very strong competitors, which already kind of are in the market.
Right.
Or if you're in a consumer space, I think it's also way harder. I mean, we're in the B2B SaaS space, which is a little easier, I think. So it really depends on what you're doing, but it doesn't work out without any money. But I think it's a decision on how much. I think I recommend to only take as much money as you need and not more, so that you really feel comfortable in spending it. And yeah.
Okay. If anyone at any point has a question, just raise your hand and I'll try to see you. But yes, feel free to ask questions as well. How big is your team now?
We have 30 people now.
30?
Yeah.
30?
Yeah, 30.
Okay, and one office here in St. Gallen? Or?
We're in St. Gallen, headquartered,
yep.
And we have one office in Frankfurt as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and we kind of were 10 people in the beginning of the year. We're now 30.
Wow.
So 3 times more, kind of in yeah.
And what do you look for? So that's also another challenging aspect of, it's one thing to have a successful product and it's another thing to have a successful team. So how, growing from 2 people to 10 people to 30 people, what do you look for when hiring someone?
Yeah, best is if you know people. I mean, best is if you could hire people you already know, where you know where they're strong at, where they're bad at. In our case, we had the luck to know a lot of people, which we're happy to work together with myself, with Andy, with others, and therefore could hire a lot of people from Nemix. They are not very happy about it. But it's very good people there. Yeah. And I had the honor to work.
Is that your tip? Get someone else to do the groundwork?
No, I'm actually it's still very hard at that point because we have a very good relationship. We really like each other. We go for beers out. I mean, it's a very good relationship. And I don't want to get people from them. In this case, it was that people wanted to come to my company basically at that point. And I was very happy that they want to do this. But I think you need to hire people which are. I always say that it becomes harder when you're more people, but you need to hire people who are better than you in what they're doing afterwards. So if you think, okay, I'm going to hire that one, he will be maybe as much good as I am, but not as good. Maybe it's the wrong one. So really try to challenge yourself and get someone who is really better than you in that job he is going to do. And hire people who you trust. I mean, it's very important, especially when you grow. So the people we hire, we can trust that they can build up other teams, that they can hire again, and they will kind of bring this philosophy and cultural thing to their people. And but in the end, I would say, I think you can attract good talent if you're authentic, if you have a good vision, if you kind of are a nice person also, it's also important. And you need to look that these people match your culture and your idea.
And have you made any hiring mistakes? Have you had to fire anyone?
We had to split on one person at the beginning, but since then we are still the same team. So we never kind of lost someone, and it's actually always also a very hard thing if someone wants to go or has to go or something, and just hard stuff,
of course,
which is also part of the business.
Yeah. We have a question over here.
Yeah, so you mentioned you went from like 1 to 10 and then from 10 to 30. How has that affected your culture in the company, and what are you doing to maintain kind of a balance between culture and growth?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's one of the very, very big challenges, I think, because if you grow from, especially, I mean, the beginning was quite easy because we hired people which we already knew, a lot of them. So from this, like, we were growing from 1 to 7 quite quickly, and there was like people we already knew. That was not a big deal. But then going from this 10 to 30, this was this year basically, which was really a huge challenge. Worked out great, but we had to do some stuff because, I mean, you hire people which are not ones you knew already, so you have to kind of take time to talk to these people. You have to take time to integrate everyone. What we do is we do a lot of team events. Also involves some drinking at some point, which is quite a good instrument of also bringing people together, even if it's not very healthy. Also, for example, we play FIFA in our office every day, quite a lot, which is taking people away from their work, I know, but still there is a lot of people from different teams then playing against each other FIFA. I mean, that's just one point where they meet. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's the coffee for sure, but you need to also create other situations where they meet and where they exchange each other. So that's very important. And also we kind of have a very diverse team, so it's really cool. For example, Jonathan here in the audience is from Sweden. He's a salesperson at Frontify, and he came over from Stockholm, or not from Lund, a small town. And went to our company because he was passionate about our vision and wanted to work for us. So, and especially those people bring in this, they bring in this mood, and I think you have to enforce that diversity. And I think then it's kind of helping each other, bringing people together. They have stories to share, something to tell. Mm-hmm. You have to be careful to not create those silos, like having like an isolated group here and an isolated group here. Yeah. So try to keep them together. Yeah, but it's hard. It's very hard to keep that,
to build the culture as the company grows.
It works out quite well so far, but now we're moving to a new office, and we probably grow from 30 to 50 maybe in the next year. And it always becomes harder because at some point I came to the office and I found out when I went out of the office in the evening, I had talked to maybe 10 people, but only a third of the whole company, which is very sad actually. But it's just not possible in another way. So you need to get into this situation of not being involved in everything and of not taking care of everything. So you need to find other ways of interacting with those people.
Right.
So this is really hard from a management perspective.
Do you have in Swiss German it's called Tricksilbersitz? Do you have like one of these growth hacks early on where you say like, okay, that was like an easy trick that you used to push growth to your page or to your sales somewhere?
I think there is not this clear thing that boosts your company. I think this is just a story that's outside somewhere. I think this just in my opinion this just doesn't happen in most cases, because this kind of hockey stick thing because of one post or something just doesn't happen. We had these moments where Smashing magazine, for example, with like 500,000 of followers on Twitter posted about us, or Product Hunt, where we were one of the product of the month, which was driving traffic and everything. But then it ends at some point.
It wasn't a game changer.
No, I mean for sure it changes a little bit. Your numbers go up and they are maybe on a higher level, but it's not changing the game. You cannot like work on something and wait for this magic moment where everything goes like crazy. this just doesn't happen. So you need to work on a sustainable way of creating everything. So this is like 20 different parallel tracks of optimizing and working on stuff. So optimizing your acquisition channels. So experimenting on paid ads, experimenting on SEO, experimenting on influencer marketing, experimenting on organic growth out of the application, on local marketing, on events, on, you know, there's 1,000 things you can do. And you need to experiment on all. And you need to also take care of your product as well. And there's also 1,000 things you can do. But it's not that one tiny thing that changes the game, in my opinion. Maybe there are some companies where it was like this, but I never heard of one.
Darren, can you get her? So you guys are based in St. Gallen.
Yeah, we're based in St. Gallen, yeah.
Have you thought of moving to Zurich?
No. No. We're thinking about, we anyway leave it open that we open an office in Zurich as well at some point. So we know that we are kind of a special case because St. Gallen is not that huge startup hub. I think I know about 2 real software startups. So we're kind of special. We feel special in St. Gallen. And in Zurich, we wouldn't be that special. So we stay there. It's quite a comfortable space. Yeah. No, we at that point where we cannot really attract enough talent in St. Gallen. At the moment, we can. Yeah. But at some point, it will be not enough. So we had to enhance and extend to different locations. I'm totally fine with opening an office in Zurich as well.
And why Frankfurt? When everyone thinks of moving to Germany, to going to Berlin for cheaper hires, for the startup community and all of that. What attracted you to Frankfurt?
In that case, it was very easy because the person we wanted to have in that position was from Frankfurt.
Okay.
Yeah, simple decisions. And it was like in the middle of Munich and Hamburg. And Frankfurt also is quite interesting for us. Yeah. So it was kind of a hub in the middle. So from a travel perspective, it's good. So because Munich and Hamburg are very important for us. Yeah, it's just in the middle of Germany, but could have been another place as well. I mean, in terms of talents, I'm pretty sure Berlin is a better place. But yeah.
And what advice would you give to a young you?
A young me?
Yeah.
In terms of what? I have a lot of
So drinking aside.
Drinking aside. Drinking less.
Related to would you have started your company earlier? Would you have would you, or when you started your company, would you have done something differently?
I'm glad everything worked out so well. So actually not much was I think I didn't make that much mistakes. But that was very lucky at that point because I had very good mentors who helped me in this situation. I think I was kind of a little bit of naive in the beginning because I took not much money. So it was very hard, but also good to kind of being enforced to build a sustainable business from the early days. I think I would have started with multiple people, so with co-founders, definitely. I also think maybe I would have created a little bit of simpler, like an easier product than ours.
To begin with.
It's quite a hard start if you start with a very complex software, which ours is. I always thought about, you could also create that next newsletter software, which you don't have to explain someone, hey, you have to send newsletters. So in our case, we have to educate a lot, which is very, very hard. So I recommend to do something which you don't have to educate too much. It's way easier because for us it took, we're now 5 years old. It took quite a time to attract the market, to understand everything, to change the story a little bit and find out. So I think I would have invested more in the brand. I would have invested more in the strategy in the beginning. Yeah, I think that's mainly it. I would do a lot the same way, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we had another question over here.
Yeah, it was about the locations. Do you think things would have turned out differently if you would have started in a different location, say Zurich or Berlin or wherever? Like, do you think you had a disadvantage?
No.
Was it maybe even an advantage because in St. Gallen there's not much competition for talent?
My disadvantage is that my family is not in the other places. So, so basically, I'm very local person. So I'm really, I need my comfort, like my people around me, to feel comfortable doing something risky. So therefore, for me, it was more a decision of where do I know people, where can I hire the first people, and since I knew around 10 people who I could hire off the shelf, basically, I just went to this place. And I actually started in Zurich. The company was founded in Zurich. I had this like tiny office somewhere where I could sit for free. And my like mail was always delivered there, and they had to scan it and send it to me because I was always in St. Gallen. Yeah, I just didn't felt that comfortable being in another place at that point. And I think I'm not very classic founder. So I'm so much into my place, you know, being in St. Gallen, being with my family and all my friends. So yeah, that's maybe a personal thing in my case. I think it's not about being less successful in other places, definitely not. I think our advantage was more that the competition for talent is not as big in St. Gallen. So we're kind of special. So we can provide something to developers, to other people, which is very special for that region. And I think that the whole area, the region is interesting. It has a lot of talents, but most of them go to Zurich and to other places. And so therefore, if we kind of build up as something very attractive, we can get a lot of talent there.
True.
And get talent back also. We have people driving from Zurich to St. Gallen every day to work for us. So
it's lucky in terms of traffic.
Yeah,
they miss the traffic.
Well, not driving, riding basically with the train.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would also like to experience those other locations, but
at the right time.
At the right time, yeah.
I think we had another question.
I find all of these soft factors very interesting, but I kind of want to talk about monetization for a minute. I think your model is brilliant because there are many things where you would pay $30 a month subscription fee to be able to create new things each month, like a newsletter, for example, or you purchase some sort of a service. I've worked with style guides at Google and Dell and Johnson & Johnson, and some of these I can see the model working where you build a style guide and you have to disseminate it across a large organization, or it can, continually changes. But for a startup or someone who's really trying to get their visual identity kind of organized in the first place and do it once, and they may need to do minor tweaks over time, and they don't work with too many agencies or have too many channels. Did you ever think about doing a model where you pay once and then you own the product versus a subscription model? Because if you're doing a subscription model with every single customer, that's a super lucrative model, and I just don't understand how it completely works for all types of customers. I think it's brilliant, though, that it does.
I think generally the subscription business is a good thing. I mean, from a monetization perspective, it's probably the best one. We also discuss, in our case, it's exactly what you said. In our case, there is a lot of companies who think, okay, this is a one-time thing. So I want to just buy this thing and then it's there. And we kind of work against this. So we kind of try to convince people, hey, this is not something static. So you have to work on it, you have to make it living, and you have to kind of evolve it over time. And this doesn't stop after a year. So it doesn't make sense to have a one-time fee, just like $200 for a year or something, and then that's it. But yeah, the main reason behind it is that we just, for us, it doesn't make much sense to do this. So
your target client is more specific, are more the active ones and not so much the small scale?
I think the whole value of our platform becomes stronger when you stay. So basically, when you work on it every day or every week or something, and you kind of evolve it over time, and you don't stop after a year, and then you can add, as a company, if you grow, you in the beginning maybe only need a logo and a type one, maybe only one page of some definitions. But as you grow, maybe you add more like paper stuff, like maybe a contract or a PowerPoint presentation or a poster or a flyer or an ad or whatever. So it grows over time. Or if you're in a store, you maybe have point of sale elements which you need to be on brand. So this all grows if you grow as a company and becomes more valuable if you add more. So, and that's exactly the story we're going to sell. So, and therefore, if people ask, can we also get a one-time thing, then we kind of convince them about the benefits of not doing that and not telling that story, because it's a mind thing. If you say, hey, this is just, before they created a style guide in InDesign, for example, they created just a static thing. There was a PDF, was sent around. No one was kind of updating it because it was too expensive. You need to have a designer to do it. You cannot do tiny changes on it. And what happens is people try to create their own kind of branding. So if there is no guideline, people create their own. Sure. And it's normally not good because they create stupid blah. So they create just something. And this is bad for your brand. This is really bad. And what people have to understand is that if they provide those guidelines in a way which is accessible in a central place, which is easily accessible, is fun to use, then there is a higher chance of becoming more consistent across channels, which in the end hopefully increases your business in total. So that's the way of how we convince people.
So we have time for maybe one or two more questions from the audience. So, yeah, Udo.
You were talking about mentors early on. Was this just related to them bringing in money, and what did they provide you with? How did you find them, and what did you provide?
I found them via the CEO of Nemix. I'm not sure if he's happy anymore about this, but I got the contact from him to talk to Mike Neff, which was the founder of Dudler, and introduced me to some other angel investors. And basically, he was the most important person at that in that starting time. There's also other very important persons there, but with him, I sat down every week for an hour. So I went to Zurich, to Tamedia at this point. I had lunch with him, and we were talking about everything, you know. Then I was telling, hey, I built that awesome stuff in the application. And he asked me, for what? And then I was going down, okay, I go back and I kind of think about if this makes sense or not. So it was a lot about building personality also. I mean, I think I learned so much over the last 5 years. I mean, I was a developer. I had no idea of all that stuff. So it was really about, in situation where things go bad, he kind of lifts you up and motivates you doing more. And in other situations, he brings you down and kind of creates that balance for you, which is important. And this was a lot of advice concerning pricing, concerning positioning in the market, concerning people, stuff.
And besides Mike, your other angel investors, were they also mentoring? Were they also giving advice?
Absolutely. Not as intensive as he did.
Yeah.
But for example, Thomas Dübendorfer is another investor.
Mm-hmm.
He helped a lot with all the documents, all the legal stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, in the beginning, I had to sign a contract with around 100 pages in English with legal blah. And I had no freaking idea what this is all about like preference of liquidity preference and all that kind of right of refusal. And you might know if you kind of found you definitely know. So it's a lot of stuff which is very, very important, but you don't understand it in the beginning. So you need people helping you to understand it. And these people are there to help you and kind of back you
Right.
in everything. So in situation where you don't feel comfortable, and they can just help you, getting you the right contacts, enabling their network to reach out to customers. They help you kind of get meetings with some important people.
So the
It's
value,
really, really important.
the value of smart money of
Yeah, I mean, the money is just 1%
Yeah.
of the value of all that. Yeah. Money is nothing
Yeah.
at that point.
Mm.
It's only for you to have a little bit of salary.
which is also important. So how you have a family?
Yeah.
How do you manage the age-old question of work life and the balance and between doing what you're passionate, which is 24/7, it's always on your mind, and spending time with your family or taking time off?
Yeah, since I'm probably not a very classic startup founder.
So you're a 9-to-5 founder.
Kind of. not really in my mind, but from a working perspective.
Yeah.
I always kind of, also we kind of evangelism that thing in our company, because we say we want people to work smart and efficient.
Yes.
They can do it maybe from 10 to 3. It doesn't really matter. Or they can do it from 9 to 5 or from 8 to whatever. But we want people to be efficient in what they do. If someone has to work from 8 to 11 in the evening, yeah, maybe he's doing more, but is he really doing better?
Right.
Not sure. So what we try to do is really to focus on that work time and being, I'm very, very focused on my work. They can probably confirm when I'm in the office. So I'm very, very into everything. And when I go home, I kind of stop everything. And I mean, my kid is now 2 years, so he is really running to me and saying hi and everything. I have no second to work on something for the office. Nothing. So maybe when he goes to bed at 9 o'clock or something, then maybe I can take the computer and do something. But also in the weekends, I just don't want to spend that time for the company. I always, in my mind, maybe I generate an idea or something, but it's important if you have such an intense job, you need that time off. And especially if you have a child, I mean, that just takes so much time.
Of course.
And this is way more important than everything else, yeah.
Absolutely. Anyone else? If not, then we like to wrap up with a series of what we call rapid fire questions, as if we haven't asked enough questions already. So the idea is really the first thing that comes to mind, just a short answer, a quick answer to some very simple questions.
Okay. I'm not prepared today.
No. So what's one item that you own that you would never sell?
Well, that's hard questions. I would never sell.
Yeah.
Cannot be people, huh?
All right, let's move on to the next one. So what's your most unusual skill?
That's hard questions. That's not fair. Most unusual skill. I'm very good in convincing others very, very strongly about something.
What's more important, strength, speed, or stamina?
Speed.
What historical figure do you most admire?
Yeah, in our case, it was the 1 million revenue, recurring revenue a year. That was one of the biggest.
Oh, we're speaking of a figure as in people, but that's a pretty... so a historical figure means a person, not a number.
Sorry, for me, his figure is number. Not as good in English.
Yeah, but that's a pretty historical moment in any company.
Not good at that. Can we do something else?
Yeah. So what's your favorite season of the year?
The season of the year, summer.
Not
summer,
salt, pepper.
Sorry. Yeah, I thought about Netflix.
That's also.
I'm really looking a lot of too much Netflix.
Yeah, but it's
I have
okay.
time for that.
So we already asked you earlier about team or single founder, and you said that team is most important.
Yeah, definitely.
And cats or dogs?
Cats,
Beer or wine?
beer,
What's your favorite app?
Slack.
What's one thing on your bucket list?
I have a lot of things on my bucket list. I actually want to help. The nation, basically our country, in something. I don't know what it is, but I kind of want to help either government or the country in doing something relevant to people.
That's nice. Very cool. And if you could have the attribute of an animal, what would that animal be? How do you see, what kind of animal do you see yourself?
I really like those. How are they called? The opossums. They are really cool. They always kind of. They feel like they are always happy. You know, they don't care. They just don't care. They just stay there and look around. Cool weather, and then they go back in their hole.
Back to sleep.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's great. That's awesome. Well, Roger, thank you so much for being with us tonight. It was a lot of fun, very insightful, and really appreciate your time and being here with us.
Thank you for
So
having
thank
me.
you. Great.
Thanks.